Your dog has been trying to tell you something every single day, and there's a good chance you've been missing most of it. Most people who love their dogs still get a few key things wrong, not because they don't care, but because the real stuff happening inside a dog's head almost never makes it into the usual advice. Today we're going to fix that. This video covers 10 specific daily habits that actually change how your dog feels, not just surface-level stuff like more treats or a longer walk, but the mechanics underneath: why certain things calm a dog down, why others quietly stress them out, and what you can start doing differently today. And before we get into number 1, I want to flag something I'll come back to near the end. There's one habit on this list that almost every dog owner does, and it's accidentally working against them in a way most people never realize. We'll get to it. Let's start with number 4, because this one shifts the way you see the whole walk. When you take your dog outside, you're probably thinking about distance, or time, or getting some exercise in. That makes sense for you. But for your dog, the walk isn't really about moving, it's about smelling. Dogs experience the world primarily through scent. The nose is doing the same job your eyes do when you walk into a new room. Every patch of grass, every fire hydrant, every crack in the sidewalk is a full paragraph of information. And when you tug the leash and keep moving, you're basically pulling them away mid-sentence. Studies show that intense sniffing actively lowers a dog's heart rate and blood pressure, and the rhythmic, deep breathing involved in processing scents engages the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, counteracting the stress response. A 2019 study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that dogs who participated in 2 weeks of daily nosework tasks performed better on a cognitive bias test than those engaged in traditional obedience training. In plain terms, dogs who got to use their nose regularly were measurably more optimistic. Not just calmer, actually more positive in how they approached new situations. So the fix is simple: give your dog a stretch of every walk where you follow them. Let them stop, let them linger, let them choose the pace. A sniffari is a controlled sniff walk where your dog is encouraged to explore scents at their own pace rather than rushing from point A to point B, and it may look like a slow stroll, but mentally, it's a full-on adventure. You don't need a longer walk. You need a different kind of walk. And while we're talking about agency on the walk, there's a related habit that most behaviorists think is massively underrated, which is letting your dog choose the direction on part of the route. Dogs spend most of their day being told where to go and when. Giving them even a short stretch where they pick left or right, or how long to stay at a spot, has been linked to reduced leash reactivity and a calmer overall demeanor. It restores a small but real sense of control, and for a dog, that matters more than most people realize. Now here's one that sounds almost too simple, but the science behind it is genuinely interesting. Give your dog something to chew every single day, separate from mealtime. Not as a reward, not as a distraction, just as a daily habit. Chewing releases endorphins. It's one of the few built-in self-regulating behaviors dogs have for managing stress, and when a dog only gets to chew during boredom spikes, they're essentially only getting that relief when they're already overwhelmed. Shelter and behaviorist data consistently show dogs given daily chew enrichment display lower stress hormones and fewer destructive behaviors. The chewing isn't the problem behavior. The absence of it is what causes the problem behavior. Okay, here's one that's going to feel counterintuitive if you've been doing it for years. Stop making direct, prolonged eye contact your default greeting with your dog. In canine body language, a hard stare is a challenge signal. It's the same posture used before a confrontation. Dogs that initiate a soft, brief gaze with their owner actually trigger a mutual oxytocin release, the same bonding loop seen between mothers and infants. But a forced, held stare from a human can register as pressure, especially for an anxious dog. The difference between a soft, willing gaze and a sustained stare is huge to a dog, even if it looks almost identical to us. Let them make eye contact on their own terms, and when they do, that's the real connection happening. Speaking of connection, let's talk about what you do when you leave the house, because this one surprises a lot of people. Emotional, drawn-out goodbyes actually spike a dog's anticipatory stress response before you've even walked out the door. The long hug, the repeated, "I'll be back, I love you, be good." Your dog doesn't understand the words, but they read your energy clearly. What they learn is that your departure is a big emotional event, and that primes them to feel anxious about it. Trainers who work with separation anxiety cases consistently find that dogs settle faster with a boring, predictable exit. No big buildup, no big reunion. You walk out like it's nothing, you come back like it's nothing, and over time the whole departure loses its emotional charge. Boring is genuinely better here. Now let's talk about something that affects your dog's behavior in training, and most people don't connect these two things at all. Unlike humans who consolidate sleep into one overnight block, dogs sleep in multiple bouts distributed across the day and night, and adult dogs sleep 12 to 14 hours per 24-hour period. A lot of that happens in short cycles throughout the day, and REM sleep plays a vital role in learning and memory consolidation in dogs. During this stage, the brain processes and strengthens memories, making it easier for dogs to recall information and adjust their behavior. This is especially crucial during training sessions, as REM sleep helps solidify new skills and habits. So when you wake a resting dog to spend time with them, even with good intentions, you're potentially cutting into the exact process that makes training stick. Less REM means poorer memory consolidation, reduced emotional processing capacity, and increased behavioral reactivity during waking hours. If you've ever wondered why your dog seems to forget things they knew yesterday, interrupted sleep might be part of the answer. Let them finish the nap. It's not laziness, it's literally how they learn. Here's another one that's easy to fix once you know it. If you leave all your dog's toys out all the time, they've probably stopped caring about most of them. This is called hedonic adaptation. The toy stops registering as novel or interesting within a few days of constant access. Behaviorists recommend keeping most toys stored and rotating a small selection in and out each week. When a toy comes back out after a week away, it effectively resets as new. Your dog isn't bored with toys in general, they're bored with the same toys sitting in the same spot every day. Rotate them and you'll see a real difference in how they engage. Now, we're getting close to the one I mentioned at the start, the habit almost every owner has that's quietly working against them. But first, this one is worth slowing down for. Feed at least one meal a day as a scatter feed instead of from a bowl. Scatter the kibble in grass, or use a snuffle mat, and watch what happens. What you're activating is foraging behavior, the same instinct that drives a dog to track, search, and problem solve. A bowl completely bypasses that. Foraging-style feeding has been shown to reduce anxious eating, food-guarding behavior, and fast eating better than slow feeder bowls alone, because it engages both scent tracking and problem-solving at the same time. Your dog's brain is built for this kind of work, and a regular bowl just doesn't use it. And while we're on the topic of how dogs move through the world, here's a practical one for anyone who takes their dog to meet other dogs on leash. Don't walk them straight toward another dog head-on. A direct, frontal approach mimics a confrontational posture in dog body language, and it's one of the most common triggers for leash tension and defensive reactions. Dogs who are walked in a slight arc toward another dog, a gentle curve rather than a straight line, show measurably less tension and fewer defensive reactions. This is one of the most overlooked practical tips in leash reactivity training, and it costs you nothing to do. But here's the one I promised you at the beginning, and this is the one that almost nobody realizes they're doing. Say your dog's name only in positive contexts. Never use it as a correction. This sounds small, but the behavioral effect is real. Many owners unintentionally condition their dog's name into a warning cue by using it right before a scolding, Rex, no, or right before something the dog doesn't like. Over time, the name itself picks up a negative emotional charge, completely separate from whatever behavior you're correcting. The result is a dog that hesitates or looks away when you call them, even in neutral situations, not because they're being difficult, but because their name has become a signal that something unpleasant is coming. Keep the name positive, always. Use a different word or sound for corrections. The name should mean something good is about to happen every single time. If you've made it this far, here's what's actually changed. You now know that the walk is about the nose, not the distance. That sleep isn't laziness, it's memory. That the dramatic goodbye is making separation harder, not easier. That your dog's name carries emotional weight you might not have realized you were building. None of this requires buying anything or overhauling your whole routine. It's about understanding what's actually happening inside your dog's experience and making small adjustments that compound over time into a genuinely better life for them. If you want to keep going with this kind of thing, there's another video right here that goes deep on reading your dog's body language, the stuff they're communicating all day that most people miss entirely. It connects directly to everything we just covered. Drop a comment below and tell me which one of these 10 you're going to start with. I read them, and it's genuinely interesting to see which ones land. And if this was useful, subscribing means you'll see the next one when it comes out. Your dog can't ask for these things with words, but they've been showing you every day.